So now I'm on to the pharmacist questions. So Georgia Niji said, do you plan on specialising in a particular area, e.g. oncology? I really want to specialise in HIV pharmacy, and this came about because I was doing an MUR in a community pharmacy and we're talking about this patient's medications, and I was like, oh yeah, is this all of the medications that you're on? I can see your record here. And he was like, actually no, there's a few more that I'm on from hospital, and that's because I have HIV. And he was quite distressed just telling me about it, but I was like, oh, that's fine, like let's talk about it. What medications are they? And I just think I'm not scared of stuff like that, and I'm not all like, oh, HIV, like get me away. One of my favourite documentaries, I think it was on Channel 4, was called The Man Who Used HIV as a Weapon, and it just made me realise how easy it is to get HIV and the mental trauma that people go through if they get it. And I just want to be one member of the team in healthcare who doesn't shy away from that kind of thing and just wants to help and takes away from the taboo of that. I also think that HIV is an area that like drug companies will constantly be working on. I like the way that there's so many different drugs with so many different modes of action, and that, you know, to avoid resistance, you've got to target certain modes of action. I feel like the whole thing in HIV is like a puzzle that you have to put together, and I think that would be really interesting to know and be able to answer. So yeah, that's what I want to specialise in. I mean, I don't know it much in detail at the moment, but I am heading towards a hospital that has a massive specialist clinic in HIV, which I'm really happy about. So I don't know, I might change my mind, but that's where I'm, you know, heading towards, and that's where my aim is currently. Summer E had an interesting question. He/she said, if pharmacists don't actually prescribe, just dispense, what is the point of studying for 5 years to become a pharmacist? Firstly, it's 4 years, but it's 5 years including the training year that you have. And to really understand this answer, or to understand this question and get an answer, you have to know what a pharmacist does. And healthcare can't run without pharmacy. So we tend to be the last stop before a patient leaves, whether that's hospital or community. Or, I mean, in industry, if pharmacists are coming up with medications and developing them, then that's the start of the journey. But in hospital and community, obviously, that's the end of the journey. I feel like as a job, we're kind of like I hate to describe it like this, but I feel as though we're kind of like the cleaners at a hotel. So you know when you go on holiday and you're like, oh, I'm going out, and then you go out and you come back and your room is spotless. A lot of the jobs that we do as pharmacists are behind the scenes. So you don't know that we're doing it, but without us, it's not possible to run. We are doing the sweep up and the clean up of everything. So in a hospital, doctors make a lot of mistakes, and obviously pharmacists do as well. I'm not saying that we don't make mistakes, but we are there to find those mistakes, call them and be like, listen, the dose is wrong for this patient because of their age, or it's got an interaction, or they've got an allergy to it, or you've not prescribed the right dose for the weight. And without us, that patient could go and potentially die. And same in community. If you hand in a prescription, you're just thinking, oh, what are you doing at the back counting tablets? But we're screening it, we're looking at whether it's legal, whether it's in date, and whether that's the right one for you, whether it interacts with anything that's in your current medical history. And also, doctors will not, and GPs won't have time to sit and talk to you about your medication, but pharmacists will. And we can sit down and tell you all about exactly why you're taking something, how to take it, the best way to take it, the common side effects, what not to do, and all of that. And so we're such a critical part of the healthcare field, because if somebody, even if they're diagnosed with something and they get given a drug or an inhaler and they go home and they think, this does not work for me, I'm gonna stop using it, then that makes the whole journey useless. And so there's so many roles that we play. So for example, if you're diagnosed with asthma and then you get an inhaler and you don't know how to use it and you think it's not working, you're just not going to use it. But can a pharmacist counsel you on that? Yes. Same with an antidepressant. If a GP starts you on an antidepressant and you think, I'm still depressed, it's not working, you might stop taking it. But we could step in and be like, these things take 2 to 4 weeks to work. So this is why you have to keep taking it every day before you make a decision and say to somebody, it's not working for me, you know? I feel like I've just ranted off about a lot of stuff that pharmacists do. It's because it can be quite frustrating because we are a misunderstood profession. But that's the reason why it's worth it. And me personally, I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to sit and tell somebody that they've got cancer or do a PR on someone. I wanted to be simply in the drugs area. So I think it's worth the 4 years that it took to do what I'm doing. And we can also do additional courses and stuff to actually be able to prescribe. So that door isn't closed either. Samir Rahman said, what are the different roles in a pharmacy? I wasn't quite sure what you meant because the question was quite vague. But if you mean just in a pharmacy, like in a community pharmacy or hospital pharmacy, the different roles that are not being a pharmacist, I guess there's like accuracy checking technician, technician, dispenser, healthcare assistant, which all have different roles. I don't really know how to answer that question. Is that what you meant? Or did you mean different roles that a pharmacist does? Because I think we've covered that. Let me know, and I guess I can go more into detail in the comments section. Kui Lava said, what's your opinion on on-call pharmacist shifts in hospital, if you've ever done any? So yes, I have done on-call. I've done on-call in acute, and I was called in for 10 boxes of fentanyl from ITU. They unfortunately hadn't brought it to the pharmacy department at the weekend when we were working, so I went home and then got called back in. My friend Kimberly, who you've seen in previous videos, she is also on call and she always gets called in. And as a mental health pharmacist, my first on call is next week, so I'll give more details on that. But what's my opinion? I think that, almost dropped my laptop there. I think that it's good. I think we can be of use, and doctors do call us and so do nurses and ask us questions. It's annoying because I kind of wanted to be in a job where I leave it at the door. So on-call kind of prevents that, but it also makes me really study, because when you are on call, it's you, and you can't just turn around and be like, hey, to your friend. I mean, you can, because you can ask your friends still, even if you're on call, but you can't just easily ask your colleagues what to do. So it does really make you study, and so yeah, I think it's good, but it's annoying. Lethanki Paranchothi has said, what is your day-to-day like as a hospital pharmacist? Would you say it's less stressful than community? I think each role brings different stress. So I've done a lot of roles in pharmacy already. So as a community pharmacist, the stress is the speed that you have to answer people's queries. People are stood there like, where's my medication? Why has it not come from the GP? Answer me now. So that kind of stress. Then mental health pharmacist stress comes from people not wanting to talk to you. So they'll be like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm not in the mood to talk to you. I don't want your counselling, and that kind of thing. The mental stress that you can also get as a mental health pharmacist. So I went through a really difficult phase in my life, and then when I was reading notes about like suicidal and paranoid people, it didn't help me. So that was another stress. Acute hospital stress is answering all these different types of queries. You're working with really niche drugs sometimes. You're not going to get an easy answer from a textbook, and you're having to monitor stuff, and you have to do like 10 discharges, and nurses are talking to you, doctors are talking to you, the pharmacy team is talking to you, technicians are talking to you. And so there's all sorts of different stress that comes with being a different type of pharmacist. But I would say that for me personally, the most stress that I feel is as a community pharmacist, just because people are rude, and yeah, they just don't know what a pharmacist does. Like in a hospital, you can still say, okay, would you just mind waiting there? I'll come back and speak to you later. But you can't do that in a community pharmacy because they don't want to come back. So I'd say that was the most stressful for me personally. She also asked, would you be able to go into some detail about the clinical diploma you have to do as a band 6? Is it hard? Did you get funding for it? If not, how much did you have to pay? So I'm going to be able to go into this in much more detail this year. I did start a Sunderland diploma, but then I moved to London, so I quit that. And this year I'm starting the UCL diploma, which I'm really excited for because obviously I quit the Sunderland one. And so I was a bit delayed, and I've just want to get it going now. So yeah, I know that there's a lot to do, and it involves portfolios and like gathering evidences and having loads of discussions and presenting and things, but obviously I haven't fully started it, so I'll probably make a video on that when I do. And it's fully funded, so I've been really lucky that every hospital I've worked for has offered to fund it. And I know that some friends in central London, they either can't get onto the diploma because there's a waiting list, or they don't have funding for it, and they have to part fund it themselves. Luckily, when I start mine, I won't have to fund it, but I will be tied down to that hospital for 3 years. So I'll have to work for them for 3 years, which is a bit worrying, but yeah, Like, I'm lucky that they are funding it, and I'll get back to you more on that when I've officially started. Alberto Bertolini has asked, is it possible to become a consultant pharmacist? I knew the answer to this was yes, I just wasn't sure how to get there, and I've found this really good article on it, so I'll also link that below. From reading the article, it looks like there's a couple of recommendations. Firstly, it's good to have a PhD. Secondly, it's good to have primary and secondary healthcare experience, so that means working in a GP and in a hospital. Thirdly, it's good to have management and leadership experience. And fourthly, it's good to have patience, apparently. It doesn't seem to have like a specific set route to becoming a consultant pharmacist, but it does exist, so I know that it's possible. Bibs Upadhyay has asked, do you get to interact with patients more in hospital or community pharmacy? How involved are you in the patient's care and making decisions in hospital pharmacy versus community? So in community pharmacy, you get to interact with a lot of people in a short space of time. So it's like quick dips. So you're constantly interacting very quickly with a lot of people. In hospital, it might be a few less people, but in more detail. And so the interactions are different. I would say community feels like you're interacting more with people because you're just dealing with that many patients and that many customers in such a short space of time. But overall, I think that you get to know more about the patient in hospital. You get to know about them more in detail and their conditions and all of that. So it's different. I think that like how involved you are as a pharmacist in patient's care depends on you as a person. So I know for a fact that I could work harder right now in mental health and be more active and involved and help with more of the decisions. But I'm not like confident enough in myself to be able to say those kind of things. So right now, I'm not really doing the best job that I can in terms of making decisions for their care. In acute hospital, I was a little bit more confident because it was more general health, it wasn't specialised. And I was at ward rounds every morning and I was able to say what I thought. And in community, you can be involved, although it doesn't seem like it because you're having to give out prescriptions within a short space of time very quickly. But at least in community, you can do MURs where you do sit with the patient and you can say, is this working for you or not? And then you can refer them back to the GP and write a note and say, listen, this is not working for this patient. Why don't you consider this alternative? So yeah, I think the involvement depends on you as a person and what you put into it, but in different ways, wherever you are. Thoughts says, would you ever consider working in primary care like in a GP office? And do you know people who have done this? Yeah, definitely. I think that once you get your diploma in independent prescribing, I definitely would consider working in a GP surgery. I think that it's different and it has a lot more to do with funding. I did do experience in Hammersmith GP surgery and I really liked the pharmacist there and she seemed to enjoy her job and she had reviews with patients and things. So I think I probably would enjoy it, but right now I want to be really busy. I want to be in a massive acute hospital. So maybe in the future, but not right now. Oh, and Thoughts also asked, any stories about difficult managers or staff personality clashes and how to deal with them? Thanks for making this video. Yeah, watch my video, How to Deal with a Bad Day at Work, and I actually watch that myself sometimes because I'm so stressed. I don't understand why people can be so horrible. But how I deal with it now is basically I just have a thriving life outside of work. I just know that my worth shouldn't be all placed in work. So I try and do loads of stuff like gym and see my friends and do loads of stuff now and socialise. And that makes me just not take work so personally. I think if I didn't have anything after work, I'd be like, oh my God, someone said this to me and I'm so upset. But I don't think in that way anymore because I'm just busy after work. I've got stuff to do and I look forward to it and I go home.